Welcome to Prepare to Care podcast. We're tackling caregiving issues and offering you free information, free tools, and free resources to help you and your family along your caregiving journey. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's and dementia can cause emotional, spiritual, and undue stress. From dealing with the diagnosis to caring for your loved one on a daily basis, caregivers oftentimes find themselves looking for help. AARP Texas and the organization Caregiver Wellness Retreat know there's a huge need to help those caring for someone with this debilitating disease, which is why they've teamed up to bring you a caregiving series devoted to help you get your life back. Melissa Smith, who founded the organization, is with us to offer easy-to-do mindfulness tools and easy techniques caregivers need that can help them throughout the day. Ms. Smith, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Let's start. Tell us, how did Caregiver Wellness Retreat begin?
Well, we started actually, almost 8 years ago now. My father was a full-time caregiver for his wife, my stepmom, Marcy, and she had early onset. So watching him care for her for really more than a decade on his own before asking for any additional help or receiving, full care services, and watching the toll that it took on him really spurred me to want to do something specifically for caregivers as a preventative tool rather than, after the fact or after the burnout. A lot of times I will say we find caregivers in the middle of their journey, or even nearing the end of their journey, and they often ask, "Where were you?" So I'm hoping that more caregivers find us early on in their stage of caregiving. And goodness, if you're not a caregiver now, the chances are you will likely become one. So this opportunity for us to offer these wellness experiences, and of course, pre-COVID, we had in-person retreats there just outside of Houston and Fulshire, Texas.
Oh.
And now, of course, with everything online, still being a little cautious of in-person, we've been able to provide all of these with amazing speakers and amazing resources, all at no cost. So we're really honored to be partnering with AARP to present some mindfulness tools for caregivers.
Great. Do you see that there is any special group or population that needs these kind of services the most?
Actually, I would say we all need it. Whether you're caregiving right at this moment or you're going to be a future caregiver, perhaps you're even caregiving for, both ends of the generations.
Mm-hmm.
I know I certainly am. I have my father and my mother and many other people that I long distance care for at the moment. And then I also have still a teenager at home. So there's, a lot of this sandwich caregiving. There really isn't anyone that I can think of that would not benefit from these mindfulness tools. And I love that now more education is toward emotional regulation as the younger generation is coming out of school. They have a few more mental health and wellness tools available to them. But a lot of us really didn't get that background and that foundation. And I think it's so critical that we have just the beginning, at least, awareness of what mindfulness is and what it has to offer us, all of us.
I think part of the challenge has been with an older generation. They felt like they did it. They had to take care of their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
They did need help. And certainly some of the resources were not there during that period of time. So it did fall on them almost 100%.
Yeah.
Dealing with someone suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia can be daunting, and you just mentioned that. What do you think can help those caring for these individuals the most?
That's such a wonderful question. There's a tremendous amount of ambiguous loss with Alzheimer's. So it is this kind of daily change and progression of the disease that you see in your loved one or the individual that you're caring for, whether you're a paid caregiver or whether you oversee caregiving that someone else is doing. There's so many different ways to experience caregiving, and one isn't lesser than another. And I think it is so important for us to take a pause to really understand the stressors and the demands that caregivers of Alzheimer's and other dementia are facing, because it's different from caregiving for, let's say, for example, someone who is experiencing cancer or experiencing a different kind of disease where the brain isn't regressing. And so with that regression, there is a whole new set of tools and a whole new set of opportunities for us to learn how to communicate with someone who has dementia. And most importantly, there is this element of, even if they're not able to communicate back, an element of honoring and respect that is often really challenging to continue day after day after day when you're losing parts of their memory or parts of their experience. So it is one of the most challenging things I think I have encountered in my life.
So, are there some other tools and techniques that caregivers can utilize to help, ease the stress of their daily duties and caregiving responsibilities?
Absolutely. I would love to actually, if we can take just a moment to take a breath together, a little experiential right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, let's do that. So you can get a little flavor of some of the things that we've been experiencing. So we've already done 2 mindfulness sessions in this series, and you can access the recordings when you actually sign up for future sessions, and you'll be notified of those recordings. You can go back. It's not like you've missed anything.
Mhm.
You can still participate. But to give you kind of a little sampling, let's just do a really short example now. So however you are listening to this right now is perfect. If you are driving, do not close your eyes. If you are in front of an electronic, then you can just simply take your eyes either slightly off of your computer or your phone, or you can close your eyes. So either way that you feel comfortable in this moment. And noticing when you close your eyes, you take out one of the senses right away, right? So our eyes are actually the sense organ that helps us develop and cultivate a sense of safety. So at any time, if your environment is busy, you can open the eyes again and just take a low gaze. But by closing the eyes, it's a signal to the body and the brain that you want to pay attention to what's inside for a moment. And as you do that, you might even notice externally what's happening. So maybe you can start to even notice the temperature of the room. You might notice what you're touching. So whether it's your clothing or your hands are touching one another, or the chair of the arm of your chair, you might just notice that. And then begin to allow your attention to drop a little bit further so you can notice the firmness of what you're sitting on. Or if you're standing, you might notice your feet. If your feet are touching the floor, notice that connection. And then a little further here, just allow yourself to just notice your breath. You don't need to change anything at all. Just notice it. If it starts to feel uncomfortable to continue to notice the breath, then go back to the external, noticing what you're touching, noticing hands and feet. And then notice what changes. Does your breath slow down? Do your shoulders drop? Does your face soften? And one more breath. And when you're ready, you can bring your gaze back and open your eyes. Charlene, how do you feel?
Relaxed.
Relaxed. Okay. Good.
I guess we stay so busy all the time, just doing stuff, you
Mhm.
know. And
Yeah.
so when you do have an opportunity to just kind of like put a pause or hold,
Mhm.
you know, it really does make a difference.
It really does. I mean, that
Yeah.
was under 2 minutes,
Hmm.
and within those 2 minutes, your change was to feel a sense of relaxation. So
Yeah.
physiologically,
Hmm.
just by stopping, right?
Right.
Stopping,
Yeah.
right? You were able to notice a subtle change in your body. And
Hmm.
what you actually did was you slowed your heart rate. You were able to redirect blood flow in your body to your visceral organs rather than your hands and feet, because you don't need
Hmm.
to prepare for conversation or action, right? Uh, when you're paying attention to just your body's inner workings,
Hmm.
it can actually work a little bit better. So
Right.
there's so many benefits to just hitting that pause button, even if it's just for a couple of breaths.
Right. Well, that is really something because we live in a society where we think we always have to be doing something,
Yep.
even at home. You just can't sit in a chair and relax. You feel like you have to do something. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that exercise. Um, so we mentioned that you are leading a series of events with us.
Mhm.
So tell us about the series.
Yeah, so we were able to do 2 so far. We've done 2 in February, one on mindful caregiving, just a basic introduction
Hmm.
on mindfulness, and one of the things that we covered was a really simple definition of mindfulness, which is that moment in which we become aware of something. We hit that pause button. After we hit the pause, there's a space so that we have the opportunity to either act or react. When we react, it means we're usually doing something in judgment. We're either
Hmm.
future thinking or we're thinking in the past. But if we act, then that's a present moment. That's an opportunity for us to really make a discerning choice. And that's really what a pause does for us. So we covered a little bit of that, and the recording is available. And
Okay.
then this week, we actually covered mindfulness in terms of grief. And so we really kind of turned the lens a little bit on how we can look at grief and loss. And of course, it, it it's a difficult topic, but we did it from a mindfulness perspective, which I think is really refreshing and also very encouraging. So our next session is actually on March 7th. And
Okay.
we have 2 in March and 2 more in April. So I
Okay.
really hope that, and Charlene, I hope you'll join us.
Well,
No
I will
pressure.
certainly try. I mean, this could be very beneficial um, for caregivers, and it gives some added tools that you can use in your caregiving journey. So we
Absolutely.
certainly appreciate that. So, any last minute tips that you would like to share with our listening audience?
Absolutely. I think one of the most beautiful things about these tools and techniques, one, they're free. They don't cost you anything. There's not a big learning curve to doing it. And the secret to it is to practice it. So when you feel stress or anxiety, you already have a bucket of tools to pull from. So the first step is just showing up. The second step is to learn them, and they're very, very simple. And then the third step is to practice it, because you're not going to go like, driving on the highway of mindfulness without kind of playing around in the parking lot first, when you first got your driver's license, right? And then you felt more and more confident. And now, when you're in a demanding situation when you drive, you can handle it and handle it with ease. It's the same thing as with mindfulness. It's super simple and it's completely accessible for anyone.
Well, Melissa, thank you for joining us and providing this very valuable information. And I'm sure many of our listening audience members will avail themselves to these sessions because they are of benefit, to you. Um, thanks again. We're so glad that you were able to join us, and be well
Thank you.
as you
My
go
pleasure.
along with your caregiving responsibilities. To sign up for Caregiving Series, be sure to go to aarp.org/Houston events. As always, don't forget to follow our Prepare to Care podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or at www.aarp.org/HoustonPTC. You can also catch past episodes on our AARP Texas YouTube channel. Thanks for joining and listening, and thanks for caring.